Do you actually want your screenplay to get made? Well, you need to stop ignoring this one detail that most writers barely spend any time on. It's not some crazy technique or obscure rule, it's the foundation of your entire script. And if you do it wrong, your story falls apart before it even has a chance. So in this video, I'm going to show you the biggest mistake that writers make when writing their screenplay and how fixing it can massively increase your odds of actually selling yours. Before we get into it, you need to understand why this is so important. Otherwise, you'll never be able to sell your screenplay. As you guys know, I help screenwriters finish their screenplays. And for a while, I wasn't signing any clients. I was putting the links in my videos, taking calls with people, but no one actually wanted to work with me despite how hard I worked on the program. So I changed up my content. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I used to make videos about how to fix your writing mindset, but no one cared. So I switched things up. I started making videos about how to actually fix your screenplay, since that's what my program was about. And lo and behold, people started wanting to work with me. And why? Because I was now making content that resonated with what writers wanted help with. What does this have to do with screenwriting? Well, imagine I didn't. Imagine I kept making videos that you guys don't care about. And well, then no one would watch my videos. No one would know that I help writers with their screenplays, and no one would purchase my writing program. There's a bunch of little steps that every client had to take until they finally decided, okay, I'm going to pay this guy. Selling your screenplay works the exact same way. You need to take agents, managers, and producers through the process of actually wanting to buy your script. And the first thing you need to sell them on is your logline. No matter how good your screenplay might be, if you can't get people interested by your logline, no one is ever going to want to read it, and they'll never see how good it is. So, how do you write a good logline? To help you with this, I'm going to show you the biggest mistake writers make when writing loglines. A lot of us writers are quick to think about the emotions our characters are going through. I mean, after all, that's what your story's about, right? We're trying to give the audience an emotional experience. Your movie might be about a character who craves external validation or some sort of emotional stability. That's great, and it's important, but it's not enough on its own. For instance, a man confronts his own toxic masculinity. This is very generic, and you have no idea what the movie is actually about. But if I say, in order to escape his numb, consumerist life, a man creates an underground club that invites people to fight each other, now you actually know what the movie is, because it's specific. And I know we're not supposed to talk about this movie in particular, but how much more interesting does that sound? Or instead of a drum student confronts the cost of obsession and ambition, you have an ambitious drum student endures psychological torment from his teacher. If you don't have this external goal clearly defined, you might want to take another look at your story, because you're going to lose people very quickly. Your protagonist has to have a clearly defined external objective. You can't just say his goal is to fulfill his destiny. Give him a specific destiny and then show him going after that. Now, you might argue that there are plenty of films that break this rule. I don't like saying rule, because at the end of the day, this is art. Okay, so The Florida Project. It's just a movie about a couple of kids hanging out and screwing around, but they don't have any particular goal. Or in Moonlight, Chiron isn't pursuing any defined goal like win the championship or save the girl. We kind of just watch how his childhood trauma ruins his life. But both of these films had significant box office success. So why is it okay for them to break this rule? Honestly, because they're indie films. They're not dependent on major studios or producers for their film to be made. Because of this, they could do whatever they want. It all depends on your goal as a writer. If you plan to direct your script yourself, or you have some directors and producers in mind who would love your type of story, by all means, write whatever you want. But if your goal is to find a manager or a studio who loves your concept, I would strongly suggest following this rule, because it will be very easy to convey to them where the real meat of the story is. I'm not saying it's impossible to do it the other way around. You guys know I'm all about authenticity and writing what you love. It just might make it a lot more difficult than it needs to be. With that being said, now that you understand the importance of giving your characters an external goal, how do you actually use it to move forward with your story? Because that's only the first thing your hero needs. But without this next piece, it won't be very interesting. To convey how this works, I'm going to use an example from Michael Hogg's writing screenplays that sell. In The Dark Knight, Batman is the main hero, and his outer motivation is to protect Gotham and stop the Joker. But the Joker creates so much chaos that he turns Gotham against Batman, and it makes it very difficult for Batman to protect the people of Gotham because they don't trust him, they don't like him, and this is what gets us through the entire plot. Without the Joker stopping Batman from achieving his goal, there'd be no gap. There'd be no reason for us to watch the movie because there'd be no point to the movie. Aaron Sorkin gives advice on this that I pretty much live by when I'm writing anything.
It all boils down to intention and obstacle. Somebody wants something standing in their way of getting it.
These two things are enough to get your protagonist through the entire screenplay. But, like I said before, we're screenwriters. We still want our story to have that deep emotional impact, right? So, how do you incorporate this? This is the next piece of your character that is absolutely essential, and it works like this. Back to The Dark Knight. There's a reason for everything Batman does. He's not just randomly putting on a suit and punching people. He's doing it to uphold justice, and on an even deeper level, he wants to retain his parents' legacy. But at the same time, he wants to do it without killing anyone. I mean, he's a superhero. He completely goes against his moral code. If he kills people, he becomes the very thing he's fighting. And this is known as his internal motivation. At a deep, deep psychological level, what does your hero really want? This goes back to my point earlier. In Whiplash, while Andrew Neiman's external motivation is to become an amazing drummer, his internal motivation is some sense of self-worth by fulfilling his obsession. So, how do you give this to your hero? Basically, you do the process backwards. Once your character has an external goal, something specific that they want to achieve, that's when you start peeling back the layers and asking yourself, okay, why does he want this? If the external goal is the vehicle, the internal goal is the driver. But how do you figure out what this internal motivation is? To demonstrate this, I'm going to use The Dark Knight again. We've established that Batman's outer motivation is to protect Gotham, right? But the outer conflict is that the Joker is constantly standing in his way and just randomly killing people. Batman's inner motivation is that he wants to uphold justice, but he wants to do it without killing anyone. If Batman just killed the Joker, all of his problems would just go away. There wouldn't be a threat anymore. Rachel wouldn't die, and Harvey would never fall off the deep end. Literally. If you've seen it. If I spoiled that movie for you, I'm sorry, that's on you. It's like 20 years old. Wow, I'm old. I remember when that came out. But he can't do this. He's too proud and pure to kill anyone, so because of it, he just keeps on facing the same problems. Whatever your character's external goal is, figure out what could be going on inside him that directly contradicts it. This creates what's known as inner conflict. For instance, if your character's external goal is to go to outer space, but his internal goal is to be safe all the time, the internal conflict might be that his fear of heights makes it very difficult for him to commit to going to space, at least until he overcomes his fear of heights. It's like Shrek. He wants to fall in love with Princess Fiona, but he also wants to be left alone. That doesn't really work. But even when you have these four elements in place, there's still one more missing piece to your screenplay. Everyone's favorite part of The Dark Knight was the Joker, right? Not just because of Heath Ledger's amazing performance, but because he was just an incredibly written character. But what is it about him that makes him so incredible? Well, it's like I said. While Batman wants to protect Gotham, the Joker wants to corrupt everything about Gotham. And because of this, they're constantly at odds with each other. This conflict between the two characters is what creates the entire story. If the Joker and Batman weren't getting in each other's way, there'd be no reason for us to care. So what you need to do is give all your characters goals that either support or go in direct opposition to your protagonist. Whatever your protagonist's goal is, make sure the other character's goals revolve around it. So again, in Batman, the Joker's goal is to corrupt Gotham. It's pretty obvious how that one goes against Batman. And Rachel Dawes, she wants the same thing as Batman. She wants to protect Gotham. And then Harvey Dent, well, he's actually kind of interesting because at first, he's on Batman's side too. He stands for the same type of justice and actually wants to protect Gotham. But then, after Rachel dies, he switches sides. And Joker's gone, sure, but now Harvey's bad, and he wants to create just as much chaos as he can. And he's standing in Batman's way. So just make sure that whatever characters you add, their goal somehow revolves around the main character's goal. And this can either mean that they go against it or they support it. You can give them all internal goals and conflicts too, but they're not essential. They'll usually come out naturally. But now that you have these elements, I'm going to show you exactly how to use them to get through every single scene in your screenplay. Here's how it works. If you've ever seen The Social Network, you know there's a lot of great scenes. You know, there's one scene where Mark convinces Eduardo to give him the money to fund his website. And then there's a scene where he decides to expand the site's reach to other universities. All these things are contributing to one goal, creating a revolutionary social network. And that's what you need to make sure your plot is doing. In every single scene, your character needs to have a specific goal, and ideally, it's one that contributes to their overarching external goal. Your character's goal is what's going to drive all their dialogue and every single action that they take. So, for each scene, just ask yourself, what does my character want right now? And just show him pursuing it. So, if your character wants to get food, how does he go about it? You know, does he rob a grocery store? Does he ask his mom to cook for him? Does he go to Taco Bell and get a 20-layer beef burrito? As long as you're aware of what all your characters want in every single scene, it will be very easy to write your screenplay. And if you're like, wow, this video was helpful, this guy can definitely help me write my screenplay, then watch this video next, because it will show you a step-by-step process for taking your screenplay from where it is now to a professional level.